Right. So, in today's session, I'm going to discuss about the full stack architect role. Because in the last session, we have discussed about the importance of full stack development and what are the different applications or technologies are we using for full stack, either on front end or middleware or back end. That part we have discussed in the previous session. At the same time, and how is this important? That part we have discussed. And of course, the one which I am showing you, this is an architecture for a full stack web application development, right? So when we are working on any web applications, right? So we have different client server, enterprise applications, cloud, remote, right? So we have different applications. In this context, it's always important for us to learn about the full stack architect role, because I could see people were already experienced in the field of application development, especially Java, all that stuff. So if we want to become a full stack architect, right? So because this is what something our session is all about. Okay, because if we want to become a full stack architect, and what are the key skill sets that are required for us, and what are our key responsibilities, that is what something we need to learn. That is what something which is essentially important. So full stack architects, more or less, like, because people are coming from experienced professionals from the Java programming or something, can also be taken into an account. But major of the responsibilities or the projects now and then may be relating to SaaS-based projects when we are moving towards cloud environment nowadays as part of migration. So we are working on different SaaS applications at the same time B2B, at the same time B2B2C, right? So all that, so that sort of products we are working now and then. So we required some kind of architect roles, especially in the full stack architect roles, looking in the organization level. So that today I'm going to discuss about what are the key skills and experiences that are required to become a full stack architect, and how this can be. So this training program is continuation, right? So we'll be learning about the required design part, right? So everything, I'll focus more on the design part of it, because architectural designing based on the system level designs and all everything is something which an architect has to be performed. So that, because prerequisite I already mentioned you, if you are from a developer background, then it is something useful. Otherwise, there is no point in learning. Okay, point to be noted. So there are different key skills and experiences being an architect we need to know. So wherein we must have some knowledge over designing and as well as implementing different complex distribution systems, and at the same time whatever the large scale applications we have, etc. Next, we need to have some knowledge over the product architecture part, because when we are developing multiple products now and then, irrespective of the technology of the domain, so we should have an understanding over product architecture. At the same time, leading the designs of the products, what is that we are developing for end-to-end technology. It is relating to banking or insurance or healthcare, right? So, or of any of the domains and all that. Next, to have some knowledge over this MERN stacking. This is now it's becoming important, especially either it can be MongoDB or Express.js or React or Node.js, right? So this is all something which we call for MERN stacking, etc. All that. So these are the overall understanding for a full stack architect is required. But of course, understanding over microservices architecture, so like how this microservices can be designed or integrating with RESTful APIs, right? So this is all something which is required. So because both principles are needed even, right? So both principles for security, authentication, authorizations are required. At the same time, some web sockets are needed. When we are working on some payments applications like payment gateway, knowledge or CMS integrations were also required. In addition to the full stack architect, apart from the one which I have explained you, nowadays most of the projects we are moving towards DevOps environment. So understanding our DevOps environment, especially from the container point of view, like something like Docker, right? At the same time, creating and as well as setting up CI/CD pipelines, or at the same time managing the infrastructure. So these are something which are essentially required. Now, when it comes to the roles and responsibilities, if we become a full stack solution architect, I can say, what are the roles and responsibilities that we need to perform? The first one about the architectural leadership. Okay, this is what something which I can say. Architectural leadership is something, architecture leadership is something which we must be good and familiar with, because we must be a good in terms of the architecture, right? So we need to design, we need to develop whatever the required things and all everything. These are all major. Whatever I'm mentioning you, these are all the underlying competencies. Okay, so whatever the team collaboration, right? So these are all something which are common, right? So architecture leadership, team collaboration, at the same time technology delivery, right? So these are all something which are common for any full stack architect roles. One has to be understood with and one has to be known with. These are all something which are common. But when it comes to, especially when it comes to the role of a architect, especially from the full stack point of view, need to have some understanding our complex and scalable environments, especially cloud-based applications and all, wherein by collaborating with some cross-functional teams like development team, operations team, product teams, and all to gather the requirements and as well as understanding the roadmaps. Along with this, we must be able in a position to design and implement robust, high performance and maintainable software architecture solutions by understanding the backend services, either it can be of different backend services using Java with Spring framework or any kind of similar frameworks. To have to an extent possible, I don't say this is important, but this point, developing some user interfaces using something like React.js and all everything for front-end technologies an additional advantage. Because anyway, you guys were from the development side. That is not something really needed, okay? Because anyway, that you'll be knowing that. But DevOps environment is something which now and then were becoming more important, especially when we are working on the Java side. This sort of knowledge is required. Next, when it comes to the Java, when you're talking about Java as a full stack development, so need to have knowledge over the Java part J to E and all. I think you guys were yesterday. I have discussed with you technical interaction. You said like you will have some knowledge over web services, worked on right, some RESTful SOAP and all. So Spring Framework. These are all anyway known to you, so that it is not required. So that is not, but you need to understand the high level designs and low level designs. This is something which you must be good with. So designing, right? So high level and designing a solution. Designing a solution is required. So either it can in the context of high level designs and low level designs. This high level designs and low level designs based on the non-functional requirements which was given by the business analyst team. So that gives you about performance, scalability, reachability, availability, right? So you must create some characteristics of an application. For that reason, some designing of these solutions, everything are required. Now and then we are moving towards cloud environment. So cloud knowledge is something always helpful to you, and it is always important for nowadays we are moving. Next, at the same time, middleware technologies even, right? So middleware platforms and all everything. If we are having some middleware platform experience, this is also something essentially useful when we are working on that. But make sure if you have some knowledge from the Java full stack development, it's always preferable. Because if you have had some experience over Java full stack development or any kind of Spring Boot implementation or any microservices or any React JS or something, right? So if you have implemented, so then to transform yourself to an architect role is required. So because if you want to design a solution and all, first of all, you need to understand the high level designs we need to create. That is required. Next, you need to have some low level design knowledge. What are the programs you are writing, right? So what are the algorithms and what are the design patterns we are using? So all these things are required. Next, we need to know about architecture patterns. Architecture patterns we must be good and familiar with. What are the different architecture patterns are we using as part of our architecture solution architecture development? Something like EA part is required. So enterprise architecture, which consists of business architecture, systems architecture, application architecture, data architecture, that is needed. Of course, we are using some TOGAF framework to do that. It is required. Next, solution design development. Finally, the final important point, solution design delivery is something required. Solution design delivery experience. This is what something you are learning, okay, as part of our full stack architect role. Solution design delivery experience is what something end of the day you will be learning. This is where somewhere we were landed end of the day. Some kind of domain knowledge, because irrespective of the project, some domain exposure is always helpful to you, because some projects nowadays we are working on the cloud environment, even though we are migrating to the cloud environment from old legacy systems. Domain exposure is needed. Some at least one or two domain knowledge is required. So that's the reason in full stack architect role, even I'm covering some domain knowledge as well. Some banking or healthcare, right? So some domain knowledge I'm covering on a high level note, not a detail, but high level note if you know, so that when you are interacting with stakeholders and cross-functional teams and business teams, so that you will be understood their requirement from the functional side, not only the technical side, understanding from the functional side will be more helpful. Okay, so domain knowledge is always important, because even though we are a full stack architect role, we are working on from the technical architecture role. Always important to have some domain exposure. We'll give you an additional edge so that it will be more easy for you to interact with the customer, right? So trying to understand about what, because based on the RFP document which was provided, because to have some RFP knowledge is also required, right? So how to understand RFP document and how we need to provide some design solutions for that. So this sort of knowledge is always needed. That is what something are we learning as part of our full stack architect training is concerned. Okay, this is what is all about. So tomorrow I'm going to discuss about the requirement design first, right? So requirement analysis followed by the requirement design. Next, after requirement design, translating the requirements into a technical specification part. For that, what kind of design you are going to create? In this design, what kind of architecture are you going to develop? What other architectural styles are we using it? And how this solution we have to define based on the non-functional requirement. This is how generally our program structure goes from tomorrow onwards. Okay. So this is what about this, right? So if you have, I think, right. So this is all about, tomorrow I'm going to explain you about the requirement perspective from the high level, so that from there we'll start, so that it will be understood.